Hi friends, welcome back. So in this video, I'll be discussing interview question related to test strategy, or you can call it as a test plan as well. So I'll be discussing around 10 plus interview questions related to test strategy in this video. So let's go by one. What is all about test strategy? The test strategy is nothing but it is an artifacts of a software testing, and it is a very high level document, we can say. It is having a complete outline how we wanted to test the software application. In this document we will be completely providing a detailed information like what are the various things or what are the approach we are going to take while doing testing. That complete information we will be writing in this test strategy. And also we will be completely defining the overall scope of the testing project, what are its objectives, resources, timelines, testing technique we will be using in this software testing project that are effective and efficient. Next question is, why test strategy is very important in software testing? Can we still do the software testing work without writing any testing strategy? The testing strategy is very crucial, especially because it is like going to one place to another place without having any roadmap. If there is no roadmap properly, we don't know from where to where we have to go, then definitely we will fail in meeting our end goal. So in order to meet what is our end goal, so definitely we will have to write the test strategy effectively. That will give us what actually the roadmap of whatever that testing we are going to make for that given application, how much testing efforts are required in order to meet the project goals and requirements. Otherwise, without that test strategy, definitely we will be in a nowhere situation. Strategy definitely it is going to help us to identify the overall risk of that testing project, and also allocation of resources is also very important, especially hardware and software resources and human resources are very costly these days, and we have to guarantee that we are going to allocate effectively these resources in an optimized way, so that we can save the overall testing efforts, resources, everything. Then only we can achieve the quality objectives within a given time or within the given budget. If we are not doing this testing strategy in a well planned way, definitely we cannot meet any project within time or within a budget constraints. And the next iterative question would be, what are the key components of a test strategy? What are the key components? What are the different things we can see in this test strategy documentation? The key components of a test strategy documents are, one is objectives and the scope of that testing project which we are going to test it, that we are going to define clearly what is the objective and scope of that project, both scope and out of scope we are going to define. The next one is, what are the testing approach we are going to take in order to successfully test that project, as well as what are the different methodologies we are going to use or adopt in order to test that application or a product, and how the testing environment would be, and what are the different infrastructure requirements we would be required or we would be required to be made available for that project to ensure we are going to test that project. And test deliverables, what are the various test deliverables we'll be expecting out of this testing project. Test deliverable could be your test plan, or it could be your test cases, test scenarios, or even automation artifacts and so on, or your test summary report or test closure reports and so on. That we are going to clearly define in this test strategy, so that we can get a buy-in from the stakeholders, so that they will also be knowing what are the various deliverables we will be providing at the end of the given testing project. And we should also define the entry and exit criteria. Unless otherwise we are not going to define this entry and exit criteria, you won't be knowing when we wanted to start the given testing project, and we won't be knowing when to exit the testing project as well. So in order to clearly define what is our entry and exit criteria for any software testing project, we have to clearly document this one in our test strategy document. And also we have to thoroughly do a detailed test estimation, and we should clearly call that out in the test strategy, like how much overall budget could be, what are the different resources are required. It could be hardware, software, and people, and the timeline as well, from when we are going to start and when we are going to end. That also we have to clearly define in this test strategy document, and how we are going to manage the defects, and how we are going to report, what tools we are going to be using. Also we have to clearly document in this test strategy document, and we should also document what are the risks we are anticipating in this testing project based on our previous project experiences, and how we are going to mitigate those risks as well. We have to clearly document in this test strategy. And the next question would be, how do you determine the scope of the testing for a given testing project? The scope normally will be defining based on by analyzing the project requirements based on the user stories, and based on the user needs, which is discussed with the end customer or end user, and based on those discussions we will be identifying which are the functionalities are very crucial in nature, critical in nature, and which features are very important, that we are going to define as part of the testing scope once we are doing the analysis of user stories or by talking to the end customer. And we are also going to define, based on the scope definition, we are going to define what we are going to test, which are in scope and which won't be in our testing bucket. And also we are going to define what are the constraints or limitations that is going to impact our overall testing activities. Hence we are making some of the things as out of scope, or also we are going to define as part of the scope of the testing project. And the next question would be, what factors do you consider when selecting any testing tools for a given project? Because when we are defining our test strategy, we should also consider automation. Whenever we are considering automation or your test management tools or defect management tools, we should also identify why we are choosing those tools also in the test strategy. There are various factors we normally keep in mind. One is the factor we are going to choose is the technologies being used in the testing project, and different platforms in that technologies which are very much compatible should be there. If I am choosing a Microsoft technology product, then I should choose similar to the same technologies than Java technology. Otherwise, which involves a lot of complication would be involved if you are choosing a totally different technologies or different platforms. And what features we will be testing it, what features or functionality this application or product is going to offer. Also we are going to know when you are choosing these testing tools, and what would be the cost of the procuring those tools, even licensing, how much licensing is required, how many testers they are going to use these tools also is required to in order to define the cost and licensing part. And even the integration compatibility with our own existing tools and the systems available with us during our testing also is very key. And we should also see to that the scalability and flexibility of those tools, because today we may be having 10 testers, tomorrow our project may increase and it may go up to 500 people, 1000 people, and still those testing tools really works. In that situation also we should see as a factor while selecting the testing tools. And again we should see what kind of vendors we have in selecting those tools, how they are providing the support once we buy those testing tools, and how is the community support is available for that tool. If there is no community, we have to completely depending on vendor support only, means it becomes very challenging. Hence, whenever we are choosing a testing tool, this is a very main criteria, which is vendor or from whom we are buying it, what kind of support they are providing, how quickly they are providing a support for all our issues, and as well as the community available in that testing tools also is a key we wanted to check whenever we are buying this or selecting these testing tools. And the next question would be, how do you ensure the effective collaboration between development and testing team? What are the various things you will be doing to ensure there will be a right collaboration between development team and testing team. One is we should clearly define the different communication channels. The communication channels could be your email communication, or it could be one-on-one meetings, team meetings, daily stand-up meetings, or sprint plannings, sprint closure activities, or different stakeholders meetings. Everything, all the channels, we have to clearly document it, and how frequently we are meeting or how frequently we are using those channels also we have to clearly document in our test strategy. And we should also involve the overall testing people or testing folks in the beginning of the project. And the next one would be sharing project documentation updates regularly, because testing people normally depends on various project documentation. If those project documentations are not up to date or it is not up to mark, then definitely testing activity is completely depending on those documentation. Hence, it is always advisable to have this documentation updating regularly, so that testing team can refer the right document. And they should both development and testing team should keep doing joint reviews, so that they can give the right feedback and they can expect the right things, and even walkthroughs with the development team. And always look for feedback from the development team and with the stakeholders, so that there will be a right collaboration culture will be there across both development team and testing team. If we manage this, definitely we can effectively collaborate with the development team and testing team. And what metrics do you measure the effectiveness of testing efforts? This is a very important question. So you know how to measure the effectiveness of a testing efforts. One is we should see test coverage. That is a key for to validate one of the effectiveness. Another is defect density, defect detection rate, how many test cases we are executing, how many defects we are catching because of those executions, and test execution progress, or any blockages there, how many passing or how many failing. And customer satisfaction survey is also another metrics we can validate the effectiveness of testing metrics. And time and effort spent on the overall testing activity is also another metrics if you follow to validate the effectiveness of testing efforts. And the next question would be, how do you handle changes to the testing strategy during project life cycle? If there is any changes, then how will you handle that? That is the question here. We have to assess all the time what is the impact of the change of the project or its objectives or timelines. So based on that, we have to keep updating the test strategy documentation, and we have to keep changing over the overall scope and over the requirements or priorities as well. Once we are updating our test strategy, we have to keep communicating to the stakeholders as well, because once we are able to communicate to the stakeholders, then we have to get a necessary buy-in from them or approval from them, so that everybody will be in the same page when there is a change in the requirements or user stories. And adjusting the overall testing activities, even resource requirements also will have to accommodate accordingly. If there is a scope becomes very huge, then we have to hire new resources, we have to get the new hardware, we have to procure new licenses, and so on. And the next question would be, what role does risk management plays in a test strategy? The risk management is a key for any software projects in that matter. It's not just for testing project, it can be across software projects, because that is going to help us to identify the potential risk in that given project and what are the uncertainties we can expect, and based on that uncertainties, what impact we may be seeing in achieving the goals of a testing efforts. We should do all those assessment. Based on that, we have to put a mitigation plan, and we have to prioritize them as well as based on the severity or likelihood that risk will happen, and what are the mitigations that we have to adopt, so that definitely we can play a right risk management to achieve a success in any testing project. And the next question would be, how do you ensure that test cases are comprehensive and coverage all scenarios? Especially one is requirement traceability we have to make, so that we can analyze complete requirements and to see that we have enough test scenarios. And we should adopt various testing techniques as well, such as equivalence partitioning or boundary value analysis and so on. Whatever the applicable techniques we have, if we adopt everything, we can easily confirm that we are covering enough scenarios. and we should review all our test cases, test scenarios across with the various stakeholders to validate the coverage. That is also very important, because when we are talking or discussing with the various stakeholders, they will also going to provide a feedback like where are the gaps are there in the coverage. Based on that, we can fix those gaps as well, and incorporates feedback from the domain expertise as well. It is also very clear. Apart from our regular development team, we should also take a feedback from domain expertise to see any gap is there in our testing and deliverables, so that based on their previous experience, we are going to enhance our overall test coverage.